The Magnificent Seven has dominated the stock market, but now is massively overvalued. In this video, I'm showing why only one company is left worth investing in. And to do that, I'm using a discounted free cash flow model. I've been using this strategy to pick stocks on my public YouTube portfolio series, which currently has 33 different stocks and is outperforming the S&P 500. And first, I should point out that Tesla has been recently booted out of the Magnificent Seven by Broadcom, but as a bonus, we're going to start with Tesla to see if it is still worth holding. For this analysis, there's going to be two different phases. In the first round, I'm going to be comparing all 8 of these companies in terms of their free cash flow valuation. And then at the end, if there are 2 or 3 companies that are pretty close together, then there will be a short tiebreaker. Now, before I get started, I first want to go over how I am determining the future free cash flow of these companies. So the first step is I'm using the historical free cash flow margin. This is the percentage of a company's revenue that they're able to generate free cash flow. So I'm using the previous 5 years of free cash flow, and I am having a slight bias towards recent performance. So for example, Nvidia has recently in the last couple of years dramatically increased their free cash flow as their data center segment has popped off. So I'll be taking that into account and adjusting my average free cash flow margin for them accordingly. And I'll be doing that for all the different companies. Second, in order to determine the future revenue for these companies, I am looking at the average analyst projections for future revenue for the next 5 years. That is my benchmark. Then I will also be looking at the highest analyst projections for future revenue over the next 5 years to see what kind of conceivable upside there could be if the best case scenario happens. And then for years 6 through 10, I am using 50% of the analyst average projected revenue. It's really difficult to project revenue 6 to 10 years out. So I'm just going to use a more conservative outlook than the nearest 5 years. Now for years 11 to infinity, I'm using a perpetual growth rate of 3%, which is roughly equal to inflation. That might be a little bit aggressive, but these 8 companies have been growing like crazy. So we'll give them an aggressive perpetual growth rate. Next, for the discount rate, this is my desired return every single year. To calculate the discount rate, I'm using the risk-free rate, which is equal to a 10-year treasury, a little over 4%. And I am adding to that the equity risk premium, which is also a little over 4%. So my desired annual return is 8.18%. That's what I'm using as my benchmark. So what this valuation is going to tell me is, should I expect to get more or less return every year than 8.18%? So let's go ahead and get into Tesla. Here is my valuation spreadsheet. I've already pasted in the high, average, and low analyst projections for Tesla. And if I go to their stockanalysis.com, I can see that the revenue growth forecast, according to the average analyst, is about 16.73%. So my forecasted revenue growth for years 6 through 10 is going to be 8%. And with those projections in mind, here's my discount rate. Here's my year 6 through 10. Here is my average analyst price projection, which is $88. So if I want a return of 8.18% per year, then a fair share price for Tesla is $88, meaning that it is currently grossly overvalued. Their current share price is $426. They would have to far exceed the average analyst projection for their current share price to be justified. And if I look at the highest analyst projections, I'm calculating a fair share price of $295, and that's still a 31% downside. So my conclusion here is that for Tesla to justify their current share price, they have to far exceed the most lofty analyst projections, making Tesla way too risky. So moving on to the next company, which is Google. On stockanalysis.com, Google's current share price is $255. Their analyst projections for their future growth in revenue is about 12%. So that's what I'm going to be using for years 1 through 5. And then for years 6 through 10, I'm going to be using 6% projected revenue growth. So on my spreadsheet, once again, I've pasted in all of the analyst projections right here. And for their past free cash flow margin, I forgot to go over this for Tesla. I used a past free cash flow margin of, I think, 7%. But for Google, their past free cash flow margin is 23%. However, I do make a few adjustments down here for R&D, capital expenditures, cash acquisitions, and stock-based compensation. And after those adjustments, their new average is 19%. So this -3 right here is adjusting their past free cash flow margin down by 3%. Now, with all of that in mind, the average analyst projection for revenue puts my fair share price today at 187. So Google would be 27% overvalued right now if they hit their average analyst projections. The highest analyst projections puts Google's fair share price today at 247, which is a 3% downside. So what this tells me is if my yearly return is going to be 8.18%, then Google has to hit the highest analyst projections for their share price today to be a fair share price. So that's overvalued for me. In my mind, that means Google is a little bit too risky. Now, on my public YouTube portfolio, I did invest in Google. I invested in Google at about $180 per share. So I've made a nice return on Google. I think Google is a really great company, but at 255, 256, I won't be adding any more Google to my portfolio at this time at the current analyst projections. Now, if more information comes out and Google has higher revenue projections going forward, then that would change their free cash flow evaluation. But at this time, Google seems to be pretty risky because it has to hit the highest analyst projections for just an 8% return. Now, if I was targeting, just to show y'all the difference here, if I was targeting a 10% return every year, then that would make it even worse. The highest analyst projections would now say I would need to buy it at 179 to have a 10% return every year. So that's the effect that changing the discount rate has. The higher the discount rate you go after, the lower the stock price needs to be today to justify its purchase. Next up, we have Broadcom, and I am going in order from smallest to largest company in order in the S&P 500. So we already went through Tesla, Google. Now Broadcom at number 6. And for those of you who are not familiar, Broadcom designs, develops, and supplies various semiconductor devices and infrastructure software solutions worldwide. Now, on their statistics page, I can see that their estimated revenue growth forecast for the next 5 years is 20% per year, which is pretty high. So pretty high analyst projections. Over to my spreadsheet, I've entered that right here for years 6 through 10. I've got 20% in there for years 1 through 5. And I've pasted in the analyst projections, high, average, and low already. Now, Broadcom has an incredibly high past free cash flow margin at 46.62. I've adjusted it half a point lower just because of the corrections that I make down here. And I am giving them credit, even though they dropped off their free cash flow margin quite a bit in 2024. That is because of a massive acquisition that they made. This counts a little bit against their free cash flow. So I'm giving them a little bit of extra credit for 46 free cash flow margin, even though their average for the last 5 years is 40. So I'm giving them a little bit of a boost for that. And then once again, we're back to a discount rate of 8.18, years 6 through 10 at 10%. That's half of their 5-year projection, and then a perpetual growth rate of 3%. And the average analyst, taking the average analyst revenue and my free cash flow margin projection, that gives me a fair share price of 251, which represents a 27% downside currently. So Broadcom looks a lot better than Google. Google looked a lot better than Tesla, but it's still a little bit overvalued if I am expecting the average analyst projection to be correct. Now, the highest analyst projection gives me a 21% upside. That would put my fair share price at 418. The current share price is 345. So if Broadcom, if they perform incredibly well and meet the highest analyst expectations, there is a 21% upside here for me on top of the 8.18% annual return every year. So Broadcom is looking a little bit more promising, but it still looks a little bit overvalued to me. Next up after Broadcom is Meta Platforms, and they are currently trading at $776 per share. Their analyst forecast for the next 5 years is 15%, which is pretty solid, which means for years 6 through 10, I'm going with 7.5%. I'm using their average free cash flow margin. That puts their average analyst projection at 703, which is just a 10% downside. So Meta just looks very slightly overvalued if they hit their average analyst expectations. And then there is a significant upside. If they're able to hit the highest analyst revenue projections, then there's 52% upside. So far, Meta is looking like my most likely investment. They look pretty solid, just slightly overvalued. Next up after Meta, we have Amazon on stockanalysis.com. Amazon is currently trading at $231 per share, and the average analyst forecast over the next 5 years is about 11%. So that means I'm going to be going with 5.5 for years 6 through 10. Their free cash flow margin over the last 5 years is pretty bad, only 2.21%, but more recently they've boosted it up to about 4.6. So I'm going to give them credit for a 4.6% free cash flow margin. And with that in mind, with the average analyst revenue projections, that puts their fair share price at only $76 per share, which means there is a 67% downside. And then if the highest analysts are correct, there is a 56% downside. So this shows me that Amazon is just incredibly overvalued. There's just not enough future growth projected with this company and not high enough margins to justify their share price today. So in my mind, what that means is Amazon is just far too risky. There's always a chance that a company could way overperform what the analysts expect, but I tend to prefer companies that are either undervalued or fairly valued today, given their expectations. After Amazon, next up we have Apple, and on stockanalysis.com, they're currently trading at $245 per share. Their revenue forecast over the next 5 years is only 6.81, so we're going to round up to 7. That is the worst growth projected so far. Putting them at 3.5% for years 6 through 10 just seems too low to me. So I'm going to boost them up to 5. So we're going with about 7% for years 1 through 5, 5% for 6 through 10, and then a 3% perpetual growth rate. Their past free cash flow margin is 26.84. However, I'm going to be bumping them down by 0.5% due to my adjustments down here. So giving them credit for about 26. With that in mind, the average analyst revenue projections puts them at $169 per share, which is a 31% downside. And then the highest analyst projections put them at a 7% downside. So in my mind, Apple has to perform a little bit better than the highest analysts to justify their current share price. Just doesn't leave much of a likely upside for me, in my opinion. So I'm saying Apple is too risky. Second to last stock is Microsoft, second largest company in the S&P 500. And once again, on stockanalysis.com, their 5-year revenue growth forecast is 12%. That means we're going to be going with 6 on years 6 through 10. And I can't remember if I showed this already, but on the forecast tab, I can actually scroll down and see the analysts' revenue projections for high, average, and low. This is the percent growth each year. So these are the values that I've been copying into my spreadsheet. So I've already got that pasted in. Their free cash flow margin historically is about 30. I'm bumping them down by 2. We've got our 12% for years 1 through 5, 3 for perpetual, 6% for 6 through 10. And with that in mind, the average analyst puts them at $346 per share, representing a 33% downside. The highest analysts give me a 5% downside. So once again, Microsoft is priced today as if they have to hit the highest analyst projections. And only then, just like a lot of these other companies, will we expect an 8.18% return every year with this share price, and assuming these projections come to pass. So once again, Microsoft, strong company, but at its current pricing, a little bit too risky for me to want to invest. And finally, the largest company in the S&P 500, we're moving on to Nvidia. So Nvidia is currently trading at $176 per share. They have an analyst projected revenue growth forecast of about 25% every year for the next 5 years, which means I'll be putting 12.5 in years 6 through 10. Their past free cash flow margin on average is 32.69, but I'm giving them credit for an extra 8% bump because recently their profitability has gone through the roof with their data center expansion. So their most recent free cash flow margin was 44.5. I'm going to put it at about 48.5. So really strong free cash flow margin. With that in mind, the average analyst projection puts them at 152 fair share price, which means they are just 14% overvalued for the average analyst. And then if the highest analysts are correct, that represents an 87% upside. So with Nvidia, they're slightly overvalued in terms of what their expectation is, but they have a really high potential upside. Clearly, Nvidia and Meta are pretty neck and neck with this comparison. Meta is a little bit more conservative. They're currently a little bit less overvalued in terms of the average analyst projections, but Nvidia has a much higher upside. So how am I going to decide between these two companies? So the first thing that I want to look at is Warren Buffett's red flags. There's a few ratios that he looks for, and if it exceeds a certain amount, he calls it a green flag, which means the company has a high probability of having a durable competitive advantage. If it's under a certain threshold, then it is a red flag, and you need to look a little more deeply at that to see if it's actually a problem. So for me, I tend to invest in companies that have very few red flags. I could look further into red flags, but since there's so many companies that I have access to invest in, if a company has too many red flags, I move on. So I'm going to do a red flag comparison. Nvidia has all green flags except for R&D. They have a relatively high R&D cost, but not high enough compared to their profitability to be a red flag. Earnings per share and profit go up every year. Their long-term debt divided by their profit is very low, meaning they have very little debt. Their retained earnings has been going off the chart. Their profit has been going up with their inventories, which is always a good sign. Goodwill has been going up. Their cash has been going up while their debt has been going down. Those are all green flags. And then their capital expenditures and depreciation are low compared to their earnings. And their adjusted current ratio is very high, meaning they have plenty of liquidity. So Nvidia has literally 0 red flags. Let's compare that to Meta. So for my automated spreadsheet, I just have to type in the ticker, and then it will automatically make those calculations. Starting at the top, so Meta has a high R&D compared to their profitability, and I saw another one down here. They also have high capital expenditures compared to their earnings. So in terms of red flag analysis, Nvidia gets the edge here. The next thing I like to look at is the synergy with their free cash flow. So I really like to analyze a company's free cash flow because this is the sum of money that makes me money at the end of the day. The free cash flow can be used to pay dividends, buy back shares. It can be used to acquire other companies, pay off debt, or organically grow the business. Obviously, both of these companies are generating a lot of free cash flow. It's pretty neck and neck. I want to see which company makes better use of their free cash flow. And one way that I like to make that comparison is I go to their financials and the ratios tab, and I scroll all the way down to the return on equity and the return on capital invested. What I like to see for return on capital invested is an increasing percentage, and obviously a higher percentage is better. So as companies invest more and more in growing their operation, if the return on invested capital is shrinking, it means that they're getting progressively less and less out of their investments. Whereas in Nvidia's case, it is growing rapidly. So when I go back to 2016, their return on invested capital is about 17.5. It went up to 31. It went back down, but now it has ballooned up to 82, 87%, 60%. Like on average, their return on invested capital has gone through the roof. Now, if I make that same comparison for Meta, once again, financials tab, ratios tab, down to the bottom, their return on capital invested has been going up slightly, but I would say moderate growth. Back in 2015, they had a 9% return on capital invested, managed to make its way up to close to 20. But lately it's been like solidly in the 20s, 22 currently. So slight growth on return on invested capital for Meta. So once again, Nvidia is going to get the edge. My final criteria for making this decision is which company has the higher upside. They're both pretty similar in terms of the average analyst valuations, but Nvidia just has a much higher upside. So if I had to invest in one Magnificent Seven company, even though all of them are a little bit overvalued compared to what I would like in an investment, Nvidia has the best risk to reward situation going on. Nvidia looks like it has a very high upside. It's obviously a very strong company with a very solid moat, a huge competitive advantage over its peers, and the market knows that, so the market is pricing it expensive as a result, but there's still some room for Nvidia to return to shareholders. I like Nvidia out of the Magnificent Seven at this time. If you talked to me about this a month ago or 2 months ago, I would have said Google. But now that Google has exploded in share price recently, Nvidia looks like it's in the best position for new investments. So let me go to Google's stock returns really quick. So just in April, they were down to $150 per share. I invested around $180. So right in this range around July. And then since then, they have shot up. They've almost doubled in price since April. So Google has had quite the run up after their lawsuit got thrown out for their antitrust lawsuit. There was a chance that they could get broken up to stop them from becoming a monopoly. That has since been thrown out. That was weighing down on shareholders quite a bit. And so since that got thrown out, their share price has gone up quite a bit. Using the discounted free cash flow method, I was able to find Google while it was still undervalued. It's a very powerful strategy. If you want to see me using this live on my public YouTube portfolio series, check out the next video right here. Hope to see you there.